Hello, and thank you to everyone who's joining us. Today is our introduction to the LibreVerse conversation about the entirety of the LibreText system and all of its platforms. So we wanted to kind of highlight the title of this talk a slightly different way, and that is getting to know the LibreText so much more than textbooks, because many people know that we've been around for 14 plus years, and we are a great collection of OER resources that are textbooks, but we have a lot more than that. So without any further ado, I do want to thank you all for joining and get started chatting about who we are and what we do in the world of OER. So many people do know our name and they're familiar with our platform and many of our books. Not many people know that we are a very lean, small group of people who are putting everything we can into making this happen at the lowest cost possible for students. In our strategic plan, we highlight over and over again how much energy we have and excitement we have for lowering the burdens for students to be successful in college, and price is not something that should be a burden for them. So we have our founder, Delmar Larson, who is on the chat right now, as well as Jennifer Rogers, who is our Director of Outreach, Engagement, and Development, who's also joining me in this call in the chat. And then Joshua Halpern, who is Professor Emeritus from Howard University, who's been with our team for a long time. And I'm the most recent member for a year and a half now, heading up professional development and other curriculum efforts, along with my partner, our mascot, Benny. This is the four people you'll get if you email us, if you ask us something, if you see us at a conference, it'll be one of the four of us, along with a lot of our volunteers who just joined because they are passionate about our projects. So the team is lean, but we're very excited and we're very passionate about what we do. And you'll see as we go through this conversation about all the different things that we do. So I do want to highlight, we do have a lot of magic makers behind the scenes, our developers, our coders, but even that's only a handful of between 3 to 5 people, depending on what grants we're working on and what projects that we're working on. But as I mentioned, Delmar Larson, who's chatting in the chat right now, he started this project back as the UC Davis's Chem Wiki when he realized that textbooks were very expensive, and coming from a background where money was not always available for all of his friends and family and students, and he knows his students well, this was a burden that was just not reasonable. General chemistry textbooks don't change that much. Having new revisions over and over again can be really stressful. So he did start the ChemWiki, which you might know that word, but that has remained. It is now our chemistry library here at LibreTexts. But along the way, in trying to advance open educational resources, textbooks throughout the universities across the country, we all came to the realization that it's not just the content that we need to be able to replace. To fully replace for-profit publishers, LibreText has to be more than just OER books. We need to have technology resources. We need to be part of the ongoing development and curation. And we also need to provide adequate training for people to interact with OER, to use it effectively in their classroom, and to understand the power of OER, not just as a content mechanism, but also as a model for how knowledge can be grown and shared throughout the community. So with that, we have grown from just that chemistry library to 16 libraries of textbooks, and then a bunch of platforms that vary from assessment to support to project management and homework systems. Lots of different things that I'll give you a little introduction to today that all support this effort to move away from a for-profit and exploitative model to being something that reduces the burden for our students. I will mention that it is free to become a verified instructor on LibreText, and there are some platforms that are only available to verified instructors. You'll notice a couple of those there. And you'll know if you're a verified instructor if when you log in, you get this big yellow banner across the top that says, please start the verification process, and your name when you go to LibreText will either have just your name and email, or it'll have this green verified instructor thing on the right-hand side. If you don't have that or you don't know how to do this, after this presentation is recorded, we can make sure that to help anybody who does need to move along that step and get verified so that you can access everything for free. Those 4 people I showed you at the beginning of the talk, those are the 4 people who go look up online every single person who wants a verified account, and we make sure they should be able to have those verified accounts. So let's begin, even though I said we're more than textbooks, with our textbook libraries, because that is still where our major amount of resources are being used and people are looking to us to help. We do have those 16 libraries. 13 of them are in English, and we have 3 international language libraries: the Espanol library, the Global library, the Ukrainian library. Note that those are not libraries uh, for teaching those languages. Those are libraries in those languages. So if you wanted to teach Spanish to English-speaking students, you would not be using the Spanish library. Instead, that would be in the humanities library. So those are for our translated texts. And I did want to point that out because it can be a little confusing and because 2026 is our year of support for translation efforts. So if you donate this year, it'll go to support online translation efforts to expand our chemistry library, our Spanish library, our global libraries in many different languages. You can see over there, the Spanish library is really a mini library of itself with biología, química, salud, these other languages libraries that libraries that you might have seen, but in a foreign language. So our English learner libraries are the humanities library, along with ESL is also in our humanities library. We are largely grant funded. It's hard to get grant funding to do translation projects because it's predominantly English speakers that are working in the United States and in our states. So that's why we're doing these donations here. So back to the libraries. Now that I've brought that back to our 13 English language libraries, there is a very specific way that we try to organize things so that we can highlight the books and make it easier to find. Here we have the engineering library. Our libraries will have 3 specific bookshelves. The standard one in the middle is the bookshelf that you're familiar with from going to any bookstore. This will be where you find your books that could be useful by any professor at any institution. So if you went to a for-profit publisher, this is more than likely what they would send you a desk copy of. A general chemistry book, a composition introduction book. Those sorts of things will be in the bookshelves. Things that could go along with any book are in our learning objects. So that would encompass laboratory exercises, case studies, interactive modules, small little modules that might be teaching a specific concept or some specific environmental zone and applying those sorts of interactive tools. Those learning objects are often coupled with books in the bookshelf. And if you wanted to couple bookshelves with learning objects and kind of create your own book that might match your syllabus, only teaching what you want, when you want it, in the order you want it, with some interactives and some regular textbook pages and maybe some of your own pages, then that custom book that's built for you, for your class, would be kept in the campus bookshelf for your university or college. So the campus bookshelf expands to have a university or college bookshelf for every school that has a book published with us. And your book custom remix would go into that book. So you have the custom books, you have the standard books, and then we have our ancillary materials types objects in our learning objects area. We do have a hidden one that is not visible. And for logged in users, if you do happen to start writing an unpublished book, then that unpublished work will be in our hidden book workbench that logged in that other users won't be able to see. But it is a hidden area where things go before they get moved into our public areas where everyone can access them. So that's how our publishing works. You'll know if you are logged in as a verified user as well, that with access to editing, by looking at the color of the bar on the library. So the color of the bar is black. You're logged in as an instructor. If you're unverified, you might get a blue bar or a student access. Otherwise, you'll get that gray bar, which is not logged in at all. So that gives you an idea of what verified access, how to get to the areas. If you want to go from anywhere to anywhere else in our libraries, you'll use this launch pad, which is that rocket ship in the corner. You'll find that on the corner of all of our pages. This lets you go from library to library or from resource to resource in a very quick and easy way. So let's go back to our launch pad after we visit the engineering library and take a look at all the other libraries that we have. You'll notice that we have lots of variations of fields that you might be familiar with: geosciences, engineering, chemistry, workforce. It's actually one of our fastest growing libraries is workforce. All of these books are put together and available to be searched as a whole library with our commons. So our commons is where you can go to find books. It's our catalog. And we consider that kind of the front of house of LibreTexts. It's where our metadata is given, how you can find print books and all of these things, search for different areas, search all the libraries. And it's where a lot of our assets can be found, PowerPoint files, other sorts of documents that you might want to use with alongside your book. And if you want to author a book, or if you wanted to modify a book that already is authored and remix something, then that would be done through our Conductor, which we like to think of as the back of house of LibreTexts. The libraries exist for the content. You access them and peruse them through the commons. That's where they're served to you. but everything is made back of the house in the kitchen, which is our project management system, Conductor, and that's available to verified instructors as authors. So let's take a look at the Commons front of house for all of our libraries. This is what the Commons looks like. You'll have a catalog. We have some collections from different groups of people. For instance, all of Lumen Learning books that are OER will be in one collection. All the OpenStack books will be in one collection. And then you can also search our homework system as well, but we'll talk more about homework later. Within this dropdown of all of our different libraries, we do have different ways to filter and search. So within the books, you can see we have over 3,400 books at time of this screenshot. You can search within different libraries. That location I mentioned, whether it's in the central bookshelf or if it's in one of the campus bookshelves. And you can also search for whether or not those books have available assets, because many of our books are growing in the number of supplemental ancillary materials that we have provided. Authors are beginning to publish slide decks and worksheets and things like that to accompany the books there as well. Again, this is expanding to alleviate the stress that comes when moving to OER from a publisher model. And along with those assets, you can also click on the assets button at top. We have almost 4,000 assets, and you can search for just different assets that would be files that would be associated with a book by different file type. You could search for PowerPoints, you could search for audio files, things like that. Those are all available through our front of house. Just to give you an idea of the expansiveness of our libraries, we have over 3,400 books in our libraries. You can see that chemistry is quite well represented, as this did start as a chemistry library, over 500 books for just the chemistry science. But very large libraries exist for social sciences and humanities because those are so expansive. Humanities covers everything from composition to those language libraries to music to dance. All of those things you'll find in the humanities library. And of course, social science is very, very broad as well. So those libraries are very massive. I will note that if you wanted to make a book that is a remix, maybe you teach something like public health that uses things from social sciences and the health library and maybe some humanities, then all of those different aspects could be found in different parts of the library. But our Remixer allows you to remix from any of the libraries together to combine to make a custom book that would match your necessities for your class. All right. Let's keep going. New in the past year, by popular demand, we now have also in our catalog the ability to create mini repositories. So these would be repositories of these assets that we just talked about, but perhaps they don't have a book. So for instance, the spectroscopy one has a bunch of PowerPoint slides that involve spectroscopy, but it's not tied to any spectroscopy book. It could be used along with any spectroscopy book or any physical chemistry book, anything that you might be teaching that uses spectroscopy, because that kind of area is used across many different areas. For another example, our marketing kit, which has all of our marketing and branding information for LibreTexts, is also just a repository, mini repository of assets. There is no textbook applied to those. So then you can also have those sorts of collections within LibreTexts as well. Excellent. So if you do happen to go into a book, what you will find in the Commons catalog is just basically a bunch of metadata or data about that book, including our copyright information. So unlike what you might be thinking about in terms of publishing a whole book, since books can be remixed and matched with different areas, we can give you a report of all the different book pages that might be a part of this collection of pages and what the different licenses that are available there. And you can see that this book has multiple licenses, and then those licenses are listed there. The authors, what library this is located in, and then also some other aspects that you can have and interact with the book. Of course, you can read the book online. You can submit an adoption report in case you are using this book in your class and you want to report to us that you are using it. We really do value that information because it helps us to boost up our ability to get grants and to prove the effectiveness of our group. If you are using the book, you may also submit a peer review to give feedback to the author about the book, what things they may want to improve. You can read the book online. That's the obvious one, but you can also download any of our books as PDFs, buying print copies as well. We print at cost, and I'll give you an example of that cost later. And one of the more commonly used features is our LMS file. So you can download a course cartridge file of the book to import it into your Blackboard or Canvas or anything like that, so that you can have the students have a seamless interface with your book all within their learning management system. So that gives you all the different tools that you have for a book before going into it. I did want to at least highlight our nice new bookstore. The bookstore allows you to print different things in black and white or color, paperback or hardcover. And you can see that this book here is over 150 pages, and the cost to print that is $8.30 for black and white. So we do print at cost. No profit is being made, but we do know people need to have that for a lot of their materials. And just to make sure you know, that is our bookstore. We do also have a swag store where you can buy cool garb and merchandise to support the team as well. So if you ever see us wearing cool, awesome t-shirts and you want one, those are available as well. Within the LibreText community, a lot of us out here use LibreText for free in our classrooms. They have links to LibreText to one of the bookshelves that exists, one of the books, maybe they use it for a supplemental material or supplemental reading. But then we have our LibreNet members. So if your institution uses LibreText a lot and also has over 5 remixed textbooks, so multiple people are using it as their primary textbook custom for their classes, then becoming a LibreNet member is an important next step in the journey of embracing OER on your campus. You can get unlimited numbers of remixed textbooks. You also get your very own campus commons, just like the ones I just showed you, except for this one is to highlight to your stakeholders at your institution what books you're using in your classrooms, which books are authored by your campus, and to give quick access to find everything that is being utilized within OER in your campus there. And you do get priority support and access to some more training materials as well. So let's go hit that launch pad, rocket ship, go back to our launch pad and take a look at the things that are not textbooks. So the things that are not textbook are up at the top, the services at the in the gray bar across the top above the libraries. And they consist of a bunch of different tools. I'm going to walk through a few of them. We have, if you're a verified instructor, the Academy Online, which has asynchronous training courses for you to walk through and get kind of an overview of how these things work, guided videos, some sample lessons on how to use this, as well as our Adapt homework system. And that leads me into our next one, which is our Adapt homework system. It's homework, it's assessment. It is a very, very vast tool that you can use that's OER questions and homework for a bunch of different tools. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a bit. We do have our connections forum. That is our newly launched this morning. If you are a member, you saw our email for discussing OER, discussing our books, communicating with authors, and to get some support questions. Along the lines of assessment, we do have Forge and Jupyter, which are our other 2 assessment tools. Forge is for long form writing and analytics and assessment. So think of assignments that last more than 1 or 2 weeks, things that might have multiple drafts. And I'll show you a little bit example of how that works, as well as Jupyter. I like to say, if you know what Jupyter is, you know what Jupyter is. If you don't know what Jupyter is, you probably don't need to know what Jupyter is. But if you're involved in computer science or data science, it's an online notebook for working with computing code. I mentioned our store and our print books. This is also where you can buy access codes for a lot of our different assessment materials that you might need. We have an H5P authoring and OER database called the Studio, and our support center with a frequently asked questions, insights page, ticketing, all those things are accessed through our support center. So let's start off with the one that is usually the next question people ask about, which is our Adapt homework system. So the Adapt homework system is over 300,000 open content questions in a question bank. So it is first and foremost a free library for verified instructors to use to go look at what questions other people have written, modify those for their own class and their own use, and to be able to just kind of brainstorm and find different ideas that might be working, maybe even for a formative assignment that doesn't require a grade book. If you do want to use it as a graded homework system, then we do have source and subordinate questions, courses, alpha, beta. If you are a course coordinator and you want to have your questions and your outline and your grade book get trickled down into your adjunct professors, for instance, that is something that's a capability of Adapt, along with anything that you'd get from any sort of learning management system. Adapt was named after the building of learning trees. Learning trees are ways that you can make adaptive learning and some metacognition built into your assessment. So for instance, this is our a top level question from the trunk of our tree. This blue box highlights that this is a question. If a student were to get this wrong, many other homework systems would just say, give them a hint and let them try it again. There's nothing wrong with that for certain pedagogical models, but for a learning tree, what you want to do is have them get introductory metacognitive insight. So you present them with this brown box, which is a box that will tell them some sort of strategy map for solving this complicated question. And from this strategy map, highlighted in brown because there is no question or assessment associated with it, they can choose 4 tracks. They can either choose one of these 3 brown training sessions on text training for significant figures, video training, and then a video training on something else. And each of those tree branches will end with another blue box of a simpler question or that if they get that right, they can then retry that original trunk question. Or they could go to the 4th question branch, which gives them 2 more practice questions. And if they can get those 2 practice questions right, they've earned an attempt to do this question again. So this is a way to enforce some sort of metacognitive. You don't just give multiple tries, and you can use any of the questions in our data bank to build these learning trees. So that's where the word adapt came from, adaptive learning, adaptive assessment. I mentioned if you wanted to use Gradebook in your class, great. This does have LTN API interaction, so you can go to with any LMS. You can give your grades right back to your Canvas, for instance, and single sign-on with your students, so they don't have to worry about a separate platform. And since we are grant funded, all of our requirements have always included accessibility by initial design. We can't use grant funding to build something that's just fancy and cool and interactive. We have to use grant funding to build something that's accessible to all students. So a lot of accessibility tools exist in there, and the ability to make sure that with assignments that you're given are giving to the right students with a level of accessibility. In addition to all of that organization type of aspect of adapt, we do have the ability to expand adapt in a continual fashion as professors see the need and want to work with us. So we originally started with this being a overarching open educational resource umbrella where we can use OER and open source tools underneath it. So students can access adapt, and within adapt, they could be given web work assignments or iMath AS, MyOpenMath questions, or H5P questions, and the students won't know what type of question they're working with. So the big hurdle we wanted to address with adapt is stop having students go to multiple different places for different types of homework, or even worse, have a faculty member have to choose one restrictive type of homework and not use the other ones because they don't want to have students going to different places. Within adapt, you can assign H5P questions, MyOpenMath questions, or web work questions, and from the student endpoint, they all look the same. This also gives us the ability to expand it to include discussion threads. So our new Discuss It platform here is kind of like VoiceThread or some of those other for-profit models where you can have graded threaded discussions. You can have them graded on whether they start discussions or reply to comments in discussions. They can use text or audio or even video. We have automatic transcription in different languages. So you can say, I would like this to be automatically transcribed into Spanish, automatically transcribed, and it's in French. In fact, the 2 largest users of our of our video-based Discuss It questions are Spanish and French classes because they want to be able to have students communicate with each other in an asynchronous manner for their homework. So that is the Discuss It, which is a native question type to LibreTexts Adapt. We also have worked with MoleView people. So anyone in chemistry might be familiar with MoleView and their molecule and structure drawings. So we have molecule and structure drawing tools, and we can grade students' drawings. And we can also have students draw a picture of a molecule, use their camera phone to take a picture of it and upload it and get kind of a little structure, modify it, make sure it looks good and send it off. And it does sync with our long form writing tool as well, which is the Forge, which we'll talk about shortly. Then a lot of other things people are looking for, aligning these questions to frameworks, customizing these questions are all done within Adapt, regardless of the different type of platform you want to use. It's a very powerful tool, and it's basically done at cost. It does require a lot of server infrastructure in order to maintain these. So unlike everything I've talked about thus far, which is completely free at LibreTexts, there is a modest cost for students to use LibreTexts, but we keep it as a subscription model. So access to Adapt for half a year is $15 as of this recording. And that comes with as many classes and homeworks as they want. So if your institution decides that they want to have students use Adapt in their English class and their math class and their chemistry class and their social work class, they don't pay $15 four times. They pay $15 once, and it covers all their courses, because the only thing that really scales and costs for us is the server infrastructure to maintain FERPA certified security standards. And that only depends on how many number of students we're using, not on how many courses they're taking. So we really try to keep the cost as low as possible while maintaining those strict security and safety standards. So now jumping on to Jupyter. Jupyter is, obviously, I mentioned, if you know about notebooks, then you know about notebooks and being able to have students interact with that. We also allow for Jupyter Binder to be used within our textbooks to increase that interactivity. So for instance, this is a textbook in statistics that has code blocks using Jupyter running the programming language R. Here, they're given the example of, let's draw a histogram based on some data with 20 breaks. This will pop up on their website interactively so they can see that image being run by the code. And now students can be instructed to maybe change the number of breaks to see how histograms change when you change the number of breaks. It gives interactivity and the ability to have students learn some coding while they're actually reading a book, instead of assigning reading and then coding exercises. So all of that can be embedded in your textbook as well. Also being able to be embedded in your textbook is H5P, interactive exercises. We have, I think at my last check, over 200, maybe, can't remember, thousands and thousands of open educational resources, OER licensed, openly licensed H5P questions and interactives that are available to be embedded in your textbooks. And if they're assessment type questions that could be graded, then they can also be embedded into Adapt to be used there. So that's all within our studio. In addition to embedding H5P and Jupyter code snippets into your textbook, you can also embed a lot of other interactives such as molecule viewers, PhET simulations, GeoGebra, CalcPlot 3D, and all these things can interlink. Forge can be embedded into Adapt as part of the gradebook. Adapt questions can be used as formative exercises like clickers in class, or they can be used embedded in a textbook. Adapt is obviously the assessment program, so they could also pull in H5P and other types of questions, molecular questions, and then all these things can be embedded in the library. So everything can be interactive across everything because we do have all of these different tools within our same platform. We're not asking you to have students use this homework set and this way to access your textbook and this way to access your Jupyter notebooks. One single sign-on accesses everything. So the Forge is the one I haven't talked about the most. It takes a little bit more description, so I want to make sure that we talk about it in a little bit more detail. So this is our newest assessment platform that we've built at LibreTexts, and it is built off of the desire to figure out how pedagogy is going to work in a world where we have generative AI. So we wanted to have something that focuses more on the process of writing as opposed to the product of writing. So students will write their essay in something that looks like a Google Doc, some Word document generator. It's actually built on Collabra, which is an open source technology. Students write there. We don't do keystroke monitoring or anything like that, but every 30 seconds we take a snapshot and we kind of get a feel for how students are editing and operating within this area, within their text itself. So for example, if you were to look at this student on the left, in the upper left-hand corner, that is 0 words at the start of the assignment, and the number of words of the essay goes down and time goes across. So at the upper left corner, 0 words, empty document on day 1, and the bottom right corner is, this is the number of words they had at time of submission at the end of the final product. Along the way in between, you can see that they wrote some, then there's a little red spot where they deleted a little bit, they wrote some more, and then you see these big green chunks. Big green chunks represent pasting a bunch of material within 30 seconds. So that you can see they pasted 3 paragraphs, wrote some, deleted a little bit, pasted a bunch, wrote some, pasted a bunch. This big red circle means they deleted a large chunk, and then they continued to paste a lot. You'll see these little scatterings of little dots throughout the entire essay, which means right before the final deadline, they might have done some copy editing to just clean things up right before they turned it in. That would be a process that's probably not what a composition professor would like to see. On the right-hand side, we have someone who rewrote a paragraph, visited the previous parts and modified a couple words, rewrote this paragraph, deleted a chunk, went down, wrote some more, and then possibly right around here in the middle of the graph would be when they would turn in a first draft to the professor. They would get feedback from that professor and then go back to the beginning of their essay and begin to edit based on the feedback they were provided. So this way the professor can see, when I gave you my feedback, you actually used it and you modified things. You moved paragraphs around, you edited those paragraphs, you rewrote those paragraphs. And then at the very end, you can see they actually wrote their whole conclusion twice, which is oftentimes what you would like to see as a good behavior. So this is a way to have faculty focus on the process of getting to a writing assignment as opposed to just the final product. And so that way, if you are a professor who does not want to see any of those green dots, no copy and pasting from somewhere else, then you can ensure that that's happening. Or if you're someone like myself who would say, well, let's allow you to use AI, but I better see after a big green copy paste a bunch of editing right after that because you pasted something in, but I want you to modify that to make it your own and to use it in the way that we had been talking about in class. Both of those are different pedagogical models. This platform doesn't force you to use any specific pedagogy except to focus on the process over the product. Okay, so that's our assessment tools and some of our engagement tools. We're going to quickly talk about the process of publishing on LibreTexts and what that looks like. I mentioned before, we have a front of house and a back of a house model towards publishing. The front of the house is our books and our commons catalog, and the back of the house would be this project management tool, which we call the Conductor. In the Conductor is where you manage your authoring teams, who has access to your book before it gets published, tasks that you want to assign to different authors or members of the team, communication with our team at LibreTexts, or communication within your team of authors. This is where you'll access that remixer I mentioned. You can pull things from different libraries into one single book, move the chapters around, delete different chapters that you want. This is where you'll access any of those peer reviews that you have maybe gotten submitted from other faculty at other institutions through our peer review button I showed you on the Commons page. This is where you'll also access our accessibility checker, where you can work with your colleagues to check off different textbook pages to make sure that you have identified all the issues that you need. We do have a full accessibility checker within our library as well. So if you're editing a page, you can access our accessibility tool and get immediate feedback on what you might need to address, such as alt text missing or headers, and in what way we're going to be going there. Finally, we do have access to our AI co-author as well. The AI co-author is actually, it's on the next page, or I didn't mention it. The AI co-author allows you to help with metadata. We don't have anything that helps you to write your textbooks. What we do have is some help with your metadata. LibreTexts will create a full index for all of the topics covered in your book and links back to the pages where those are covered. But those pages then need to be tagged. That can be a tedious process, so AI can help you to tag those pages so that the concepts are readily attached to each page. We also have a tool with AI which will help generate page summaries. Page summaries are tedious to write, but they're very easy for AI to write. It's good at reading things and then extrapolating out a summary. Of course, those are still editable by you. And then the most used one is our alt text generator. So we do have an alt text generator, which can help you to get first drafts of all your alt text for all of your images in your book as well. Those are all done on the Conductor aspect, the back of the house aspect of our libraries. I have thrown a bunch of things at you through this whole entire talk, but I want to make sure that you know that we do have a lot of support as well. Within that launch pad, we do have our support center along with our connections form that launched today. That support center is also accessible by looking at the bottom right corner of most of our web pages. We have that little blue thing, which is also, you can see in the bottom left corner, the bottom right corner. I keep saying left. The bottom right corner of my little video here. That will take you to a place where you can request support, record a video of what's happening, that maybe something has a little bug that you want help with, and our team will get back to you to help you with those sorts of things. I did mention the LibreText Insight, which is also in our support center. This is our frequently asked questions. If you have questions about how to do something, where to click, we have videos. We also have screenshots in there. linking your LMS to our Adapt homework system, for instance, is all documented in there. How to build things in Adapt homework system are all there. And if you want to see videos like the one today, this will be posted later in our LibreText YouTube channel, which has all of the recordings of all of our public presentations that we've given. And lastly, I want to point out that we do have office hours every Tuesday and Thursday, open, first come, first serve. One of those 4 people on that first slide of today will be in the Zoom call, and they'll be here to answer any questions that you have, whether it's I don't know where to start, I don't have an account, all the way to I am finishing up my book and I need some help with this minor formatting thing or building some assignment. And those are at 9 a.m. or noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And the link is at zoom.libretext.org. And lastly, I mentioned we did launch our connections forum today as well. So this is a forum for faculty to interact. One of the things that you will probably know about LibreText is people who use it are passionate about it. They love it. They can never move away from it because the power that they have of the community of people that are using it. So that power of the community, we wanted to allow other people to interact in a more transparent way rather than waiting for a conference or waiting for a webinar to attend. And so a forum will be a very powerful tool because we can share our knowledge. So just to let you know, this is for posting can only be done by verified instructors only. So you do need to have a verified instructor account before you can post, but otherwise most conversations are public. You do have an option for anonymous posts or private posts. There is a support tag where you can go look at current support discussions. And we really would like this to expand to beyond just how to use LibreText to how do you effectively use OER, teach OER, how does OER impact your campus, sharing the love of OER and LibreText with others. And it all starts with our getting started page. There's a link in the email that you got today, or if Jennifer can throw that into the link into the chat as well. This is where you might find options for letting us know you want to volunteer, attend some sort of a seminar, or share a co-sponsored talk somewhere on how you're using LibreText. We also are doing our book announcements for new books that are getting published or harvested into our library. We're hoping to keeping track of our errata and communication with authors through this forum. Profiles and most public posts are public. And I do want to mention that you can also tag your post with members only if you do not want it to be public. And you can also post anonymously if you'd like to do that as well. So, and I did want to also say, we have moved our connections through the Academy to being seeking collaborators area there. We've already had a bunch of people posting that they're looking for collaborators who want to increase the Spanish curriculum offerings, organic chemistry focused on medicinal chemistry projects. So people who would like some teams to work together on getting through some new projects in OER, which maybe they might be the only person doing that within their county or maybe even half of their state. So being able to collaborate across the whole communities there. A few other things that can be of interest to you if you're looking for help and support. We have free monthly webinars. We had one last Friday. There'll be another one this month in March. They're usually on the third Friday. If you're in our newsletter, or verified instructors all get our newsletter. They'll be in there. Every summer, we want to run a week-long workshop on everything to do with LibreText with lots and lots of hands-on work time. It's virtual. You get office hours all the time, as well as guided walkthroughs, step-by-step procedures. That's a great way to set off a week of your time in the summer to work on an OER project that you really want to do and have the support to do that alongside us. Oktoberfest is our one-day crash course on LibreText, which is less hands-on material, but lots of more in-depth discussion about how the things work. That one is free and held every October, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person. Always in virtually, there'll always be a virtual option. I just mentioned LibreText Connections. We do offer in-person and virtual workshops through our LibreText Academy for a fee. We do cohort training. We just finished publishing our first book through our first cohort that started last year. We've worked with groups of faculty in chemistry. We've worked with groups of people through grant projects or ZTC programs to move whole entire programs into OER, along with our long-term mentoring programs, asynchronous training modules. And if you wanted to work with us to build a professional training module, We've worked with faculty liaisons to build 3-year plans for faculty development to launch into the zero textbook cost world, or OER in general, and to come up with plans that have been successful elsewhere. Lastly, I did want to mention a lot of the stuff that you saw today came out of projects that were from faculty who were passionate about doing something, but wanted to make sure that what they did wasn't used just by their 20 students in their class, but made an effect across the whole campus. We work with faculty to co-write grants. You're much more likely to get a grant if you have a dissemination mechanism, and LibreText is a very powerful dissemination mechanism. If it's useful to you and it's useful to other faculty in your area, it's more than likely useful as part of our LibreVerse. So just to give you that little highlight, next month is April. Sorry, next month is March. This month is March 2nd right now. So we will be having our Basics for Beginners webinar, which is actually very similar to the webinar I just gave right now, in 2 weeks. And then, or actually 3 Fridays from now. And then in April, we'll talk about remixing. And then in June, we'll have an introduction to Adapt. July, we will have our LibreFest. In August, we'll be talking about mini repositories and ancillary materials. In October, we like to couple our Oktoberfest with a selection of success stories so people can hear about other people's success throughout the time there. So, and all of those topics follow basically in the same order as our construction guide, which is basically our user manual for LibreText. So this is the table of contents for our construction guide. So if you're interested in more about the commons or the conductor, what remixing is, you can find that all at the LibreText construction guide, or you can find it by going to our LibreText Academy. LibreText Academy is at academy.libretext.org. There's links to our Academy services, which are the different paid programs that we talked about. The construction guide, our free monthly webinars are all available there. And of course, keep an eye on our newsletter. So with that, I wanted to give some time for people to ask some questions, to explore, visit the connections forum. And if you don't have a LibreText registered account, then we can walk through the steps of doing that after this recording.